Hey guys, I'm Azra, and in this Lord of the Rings Rise to War video, I'm going to show you a guide about Gandalf the Grey. He is among the best T2 commanders, a good Witch King counter in his Alchemist build, and also a very good tile taker. Let's get going. Looking at Gandalf's role, we can see that this guy is considered a support. Support means that once he reaches level 20, he will get plus 25 more commander focus as well as plus 5 more skill points to spend. This is great. Then looking at his attributes, his strongest attribute is by far his focus stat, and it makes sense to fully commit into focus because he has skills that scale with focus and they are crucial for Gandalf. His second strongest stat, might, and as you see, the speed. He isn't that strong on the speed. But since he has Convener, kinda doesn't need it that much. Convener is giving him initiative, so that's okay. Right now I have this gear equipped on him, the gigantic hammer, just because it has lots of might, and plus 5 attack. This is so nice to have for your infantry damage dealers, like your sharpshooters or your axe throwers. And I do know that this special effect isn't that great, but yeah, I have to make do with what I have right now. I'm experimenting with him. I was running him the longest time with the cover, but we will get to that later in the itemization part. This is just for you to see that I am running him with these items right now. Alright, so let's jump over to his skills. Now let's have a look at Gandalf's skills and see what he specializes in. At respect 0, we have Mithrandir here at the bottom. This is reducing the damage that you receive by a certain percentage, and this is scaling with focus. Once you have maxed it out, 3 allied units also gain a chance of avoiding the first instance of damage in battle. Then you have Convener, first 2 rounds, all allied units gain initiative. This is so amazing, especially since Gandalf doesn't have a lot of speed. But for the first 2 rounds, you are ensured to get the first hit in. And they can also get a certain chance of following up. So you have lots of bursts with Convener, and this is his #1 strength. Free Peoples, you also have some damage mitigation if you go into this. Then we have the Grey. This is self-sustain. Whenever you hit, you get a 50% chance to follow up with a healing on your units. Then we have fleeting movements. This is avoidance, or sometimes it's called evade. This is amazing. It activates every 3 rounds, but you can play around it if the enemy has pursuit, and then this is nullified. The same goes for healing, by the way. Healing can get nullified by any healing nullification effect. Blindside, every 3 rounds you get a stun against 1 unit. This is Gandalf's strength, like he has good, reliable CC. Every 3 rounds, stun against 1 unit, also a bit of focus damage, but we aren't looking for the damage, we are looking for the stun. Then we have Wizard. Wizard is amazing. You need to at least have 1 point spent into this just to have, on round 1, a stun against 2 enemy units. This is strong CC, and this is also among the reasons what makes Gandalf so strong. Then we spend 1 point into Search, just to have a chance of having the Grey proc once more, since the Grey always activates whenever Gandalf is taking an aggressive action, like attacking. And this, the Search counts as an aggressive action as well. To the top we have, I don't know how to pronounce this, but let's just skip this. You won't be speccing into this anyway. White Council, among the best talents you have, especially against the evil side. This too behaves kind of like Mithrandir. It is mitigating damage. All allied units' first 3 instances of damage received minus a certain percentage, and this too scales with focus. So you have strong mitigation in your round, in your respect 5, as well as with your respect 0 here. And once you have maxed this out, damage reduction effect triggers an additional time. So this isn't just for the first 3 instances of damage, but also in the late game. It will trigger again. Against evil side, this is the formula how to shut down elemental damage. This is how Gandalf holds his ground against Witch Kings. But not just only that, he also has High Alert. High Alert is reducing the elemental damage you receive. And this too is countering Witch Kings. As long as you have High Alert, you are good to go against elemental damage. And then you also have Champion of the Light. This is exceptionally good against Gundabad, Isengard, and Mordor. Keep that in mind. Like whenever these races are in an enemy army composition, it is always nice to have Champion of the Light. Alright, now let's see how we want to build our Gandalf. It really depends against what you are fighting. For the time being, let's assume you are fighting against an Orc or Uruk-hai heavy enemy army. Like you are fighting evil side and you need to counter Uruk-hais and Orcs somehow. What I would like to do is, I always spend 2 points into my wizard just to get the round 1 stun. Then I spend 1 point into Surge, 2 points into the Grey, 1 point into Blindside just to have the stun here too. And then I go over to Mithrandir, put 2 points here, 1 point into Convener, and then go back to White Council, 2 points here, High Alert. If I'm fighting Alchemists or Corsairs, then it would make sense to go High Alert and max this out. And then I would be going over to Champion of the Light. This would probably be my last skill, which I would like to max out. So this would be my skill order against evil side when they have Uruk-hais and Orcs. And then I would start maxing out my skills. Something like this. Max out Mithrandir with Convener. I would be going back and forth between these two skills. And once this is done, I would be immediately jumping over to White Council so I can start mitigating damage, the Witch King's damage. And this is the reason why I have my Gandalf, just to counter Witch Kings and to take tiles. Then, of course, we need High Alert. And then I would be immediately going over to Champion of the Light. And at this point, whatever leftover points I have, I need to consider. Do I want to go into Free Peoples just to have more damage mitigation? Or do I want to be heavy on damage? If I want to be heavy on damage, I'm going to spend everything I have into Wizard. Right now, I think it's okay to go with Free Peoples. And then I spend whatever I have into Wizard. And this is my build against Witch Kings, like against Orcs and Uruk-hais in general. If I am fighting heavily against Evil Man, my spec would look different. Like, I still would go into Wizard just to have the stun. I would go into Surge, 2 points into the Grey, 1 point into Blindside, Mithrandir, Convener. Alright, and then I would be going into Mithrandir, max it out, go back and forth between Convener, the same game. Let me just max it out immediately. We could now go either into the Grey and the Voidance, like this evade effect, or even go into Free Peoples. Like, this is safe damage mitigation and the enemy can't play around this. But what they can do, they can counter this by going into Healing Nullification. They could also counter fleeting movements with Pursuit. So these two skills can be countered. Free Peoples can't be countered. But I still like to go into the Grey and fleeting movements, since not many people have Healing Nullification. Let's just go back and forth here too. I will just max it out again. And then you just spend whatever you have into Free Peoples. And the rest goes into Wizard. And this would be my build against Evil Man. Keep in mind that you are vulnerable to Healing Nullification and also against Pursuit. But yeah, you have to play around it, guys. Whenever you see one of these abilities are countered, you are much better off in, let's say, maxing out Free Peoples much earlier or investing more heavily into Wizard. But I think this still is a solid build against Evil Man. And by the way, if you notice that the enemy is countering you with Pursuit and Healing Nullification a lot, then it would make sense to take away all of these points I have used to max these two skills out and reinvest them into White Council just to get the safe damage mitigation. This can't be played around. This is always there to keep you safe. And this is also the build I'm using to PvE. You can also use this build against good side. Like the same logic. And they have someone like Dine who is nullifying your healing. Just don't spend heavily into the Grey. Instead, you would be much better off spending into White Council. If they have Pursuit, yeah, like the same logic. Don't go this way. Go this way much earlier or spend more into the Wizard. And of course, max out your White Council. But there you go, guys. This would be my build against Evil Man. It is also good to take tiles. And also, it's good against good side. Now let's have a look at Gandalf's strength. His number one strength is definitely front-loaded damage because he has Convener. His second strength is for sure his high survivability for his army. He is providing survivability in different ways, like with damage mitigation over here, or even more damage mitigation with here, White Council, and even further mitigation with 3 peoples, or survivability by providing healing, survivability by providing avoidance, survivability with high alert, since this is mitigating elemental damage. And his third and last strength would be his strong CC. And I'm looking at the stun here. Like on round 1, stun against 2 enemy units? Oh boy, that's very strong. And then he is following up with every 3 rounds with another stun against 1 enemy unit? That's amazing. And this, ladies and gentlemen, makes Gandalf so strong. But Gandalf's strengths can also be his weaknesses. Let me explain why. So Convener, right? This is giving you lots of front-loaded damage, but this too can be countered. Let me show you the Mouth of Sauron. So the Mouth of Sauron has a title at respect 0, which is hardcore countering Gandalf's Convener, which is Harbinger of Darkness. First 2 rounds, allied and enemy units damage dealt is reduced by a certain percentage. And this is Gandalf's number 1 arch enemy. If you can shut down Convener, you are almost there. You're good to go to counter Gandalf. Mouth of Sauron is his number 1 arch enemy. Go for it. But there's also another way how you can shut down Convener, which is if the enemy CCs you. If you are sitting in stun or if you're affected by madness, you can't wail against the enemy, right? Since you are sitting in stun. Stun is even more effective against Gandalf than madness, since stun is always a safe proc. It's just there. But madness, first of all, madness needs to affect the enemy units, and then it also needs to kick in, and there is a 50 to 50% chance to kick in. But when it kicks in, it can be even better than stun, because then you are wailing against your own units. So keep that in mind. I prefer stun over madness if I want to counter Gandalf's Convener. His third weakness would be high commanded damage. There isn't just a mechanic that is playing around it. High commanded damage with Pursuit, if it can connect, is always nice against Gandalf. Another weakness of Gandalf would be avoidance, since, just look at this, guys. Imagine you have a Convener proc, but you can't land your hits because the enemy is avoiding every burst you are throwing against them. So that's a pity. Avoidance is a weakness. Last but not least, we have army debuffs that are strong against Gandalf. And I would like to show you the Undying, because the Undying is doing an exceptionally good job against Gandalf, since he is ticking so many boxes of Gandalf's weaknesses. Let me show you what the Undying is doing. Just as I mentioned in Gandalf's weaknesses, there is avoidance here. The Undying is avoiding Convener, but not just only that, he's also throwing a debuff against the enemy units. And Gandalf's Convener can't front-load his damage when it is getting mitigated. On top of that, I haven't mentioned this, but you can also consider Nimbleness. This is an enemy buff. That's not a debuff, this is a buff for the Undying's army, where they receive less damage from ranged units. And Gandalf is relying a lot on ranged units, since they deal the biggest chunk of his damage. And there you go, guys. These are Gandalf's strengths as well as his weaknesses. The more boxes on his weaknesses you can check, the more likely you are to defeat him. It's time to have a look at Gandalf's purple gear and see what makes sense with this guy. So, as our weapon, the carver is by far our #1 choice. There isn't anything that can compete with this. We also have smite as a special effect. Whenever smite triggers, you get a chance of triggering the Grey to get another healing. So this is very nice for that very reason. Looking at this armor, this is very situational. When you're fighting good side, it makes sense to equip the quilted armor with focus protection just to have some coverage against oath breakers as well as coverage against Galadriel's focused burst. If you are fighting evil side and they are going heavily on alchemists or corsairs, the superior hauberk with fire protection will be your answer against that. But when you're fighting against evil men, and evil men, if they don't have lots of fire damage, like they don't have corsairs, makes sense to equip the scale mail with melee vigor. Alright, let's jump over to the helmet. I think the horseman's helmet is mandatory. I do know that it doesn't have focus in it, but it has warding, and we need this warding effect to counter Witch Kings. We can't afford to have our convener shut down by the Witch King's Nazgul stun. And that's why we have Horseman's Helmet. Convener needs to be up for the first 2 rounds. If you are fighting Saurons, they want to counter you with Madness. But you can just switch over to Resolve and counter Sauron's Madness. So feel free to switch between these 2 special effects if you have the Horseman's Helmet. And then I think it is mandatory to equip the Wizard's Firework with Hunter's Mark just to get the pursuit and ensure you are getting your convener hits in. If the enemy has evade, you want to have pursuit. If the enemy doesn't have evade, you can also play with ranged might, since this will boost your front-loaded damage even further. If you don't have the Wizard's Firework, feel free to use the Smoking Pipe. Now let's have a look at Gandalf's golden gear and see which I consider the best option. So I'm not quite sure which one is better. Like, is it the gigantic hammer since it provides lots of might and plus attack? Imagine if you had eagles in your team composition with this. I think that can be amazing, especially considering the fact that Gandalf is covering his eagles with high alert against elemental damage. This can be outstandingly good. And then we also have the Noldor sword. This has Mind Split. Whenever you attack, you get a 50% chance to also follow up with focus damage. And this too triggers the Grey. And the Noldor sword also have all the stats we need, like might, focus, speed. What else can we wish for? I'm not sure which one is better, to be fair. Like, this is still up for experimenting. I don't know, guys. Let me know in the comments. What do you think is better? Looking at this purple gear, it's still the same logic, like with the purple gear here. It's situational. Are you fighting good side? Equip the quilted armor. Are you fighting evil side? With fire damage, equip the superior hauberk. Looking at Gandalf's helmet, I think the Cask of Submerged Isle is mandatory in regards to golden gear, since this is covering stun as well as madness immunity. You need to ensure that your convener is up, that your convener is encountered, and with that, you cover some weaknesses. Looking at Gandalf's accessory, now hear me out. You could go with the Night Star with Tactical Mark since this has Pursuit, but you could also go with Opportune Strike to get maximum damage out of your axe throwers. The axe throwers have a big range between their minimum and maximum damage. And once you can get Opportune Strike and you at least refine it twice, you will be sitting on 50% chance to causing maximum damage, and your axe throwers will love it. Your axe throwers might go berserk. This is still subject for experiment for me, but this is my theory. I think the axe throwers with Opportune Strike will go crazy. Does it make sense to give Gandalf his Respect 10 item? In my opinion, no. Like, why would I want to have this item with this damage mitigation if I could have Night Star with Pursuit just to ensure that my convener can connect if the enemy has evade, or if they don't have evade, I can just go crazy with even more burst damage with Opportune Strike, which pairs well with convener. So maybe this is just me, but I will be going with this gear. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, I don't know. Once I have this gear maxed out and max refined, I will come back with some reports and then we will see what's going on here. Alright, it's time to decide what units make sense with Gandalf. So what I am doing a lot is, I always have a melee front around like a 30% melee front, and then pair it with 70% ranged units. It could look something like this. We could be going with, let's say, since I'm a Gondor, with 15% Sworn Knights. This would be my first melee unit. And then I could also follow up with something like Guards of the Tower, also 15%, and there you go, I would have my 30% melee front. And then I just pair it with, let's say, with my axe throwers. 70%, around 70% ranged units, that would work. Or let's say with sharpshooters, that would work too. Or let's say we do something else, like we will have 2 different ranged units in our team comp, and then go with just 1 melee front. It could look something like this. Let's remove those guys, go up to 30%, something like this, and then include some axe throwers into this team composition, and we are good to go, something like this. But we could also replace the Sworn Knights with Guards of the Tower, something like this, and there you go. But guys, the formula stays the same. Just have around 30% melee units, and the rest of them should be filled with ranged units. It is up to you if you want to have only 1 ranged unit in your army or 2 ranged units. I do like to have 2 different ranged units in my army composition, since whenever 1 ranged unit gets CC'd with a stun, let's say, I still have the other ranged units to get value out of my convener. Alright, it's time for the reports, and here I have chosen a fight where I'm fighting a Witch King. I do consider Gandalf a good Witch King counter, and let's see what has happened here. So first of all, my Gandalf has this gear. I have equipped the Carver with Smite. I have the Quilted Armor, also Cask of Submerged Isle, and the Wizard's Firework with Mend. I didn't need Pursuit in this fight, so getting healing has much more value here, especially considering the fact that we have Haven. Whenever this procs, we get damage mitigation minus 15%. It can stack to 30%, and these guys are protecting my army. So I do want as much healing possible to have this buff up. Minus 30% is big. And these guys get also protected with my damage mitigation I have with my Frontier, as well as with White Council, and also High Alert. So that is good coverage for these guys, so they can protect my weak backline. My weak backline is ready to burst with Dispersion, AoE damage, and even more AoE damage with my Bow Knights. They too have Dispersion. Then that's the logic, and it is working out. So good Witch King counter here right now. This Witch King is going with a Respect 5 build. You don't see this a lot. You see the meta build with a Respect 3 build more often, but even then we could counter that Witch King. Here I have another fight, and I have equipped some different gear just to see how things are working. Right now I don't have 2 ranged units in my army. I have decided to go with Sworn Knights and also with Guards of the Tower just to see what synergy they have. Like, remember, we have Haven. Haven is always nice with the damage mitigation. They are protecting the Guards of the Tower. And the Guards of the Tower, I have given them shield training here in Season 5, guys. It says that my Guards of the Tower may receive 20% more damage, but these guys provide a buff. They give all my other allied units in my army a damage mitigation of minus 20%. So, if I get the healing proc on Haven, I can have minus 30% plus the Guard's Tower's damage mitigation of minus 20%, stacking up to minus 15% damage mitigation. I was curious and wanted to see how this works out. And I also equipped some other gear, like I was going with the gigantic hammer here. I do know that Frenzy isn't the right special effect for him, but keep in mind that whenever we take action, we get a chance of proccing the Grey, and if the Grey procs on the Sworn Knight's Haven, we refresh the damage mitigation. So maybe that's kind of nice to have. I also have switched from my Quilted Armor to the Scale Mail just to see if there is a difference. And also I have switched out my Wizard's Firework with the worn out Smoking Pipe since this has Sustain. Sustain is AoE healing. If I get AoE healing, I do know for a fact that every other round I get a Haven proc. With the Wizard's Fireworks Meant, you kind of need to get lucky because it isn't AoE healing. It is selecting randomly one unit from your army that gets the healing. I don't wanted it to rely on luck alone, which is why I have gone with the AoE healing here, just to get this proc up. And this is the result we have, guys. The Witch King has outstandingly good gear. It is a cutlass with melee might. It is the Warborn Battle Plate with Resilience of Soldiers. Horseman's Helmet, Resolve. Maybe if he had Warding, he could have done more damage against me since he was countered by my Wizard Stun in the first round. Drums of Moria, and also Respect 5 spec. Another fight. I am fighting with 2 ranged units in my army comp. I have equipped the Wizard's Firework this time and also the Carver. And let's see what we are doing here right now. We are fighting against the Sauron. And the Sauron has Biz gear as well. Bone Mass with Hysteria. Wizard's Firework with Meant. Luckily, he doesn't have Pursuit. And let's see what I have. Do I have Avoidance active? I don't have Avoidance active right now. So I am fighting in my Mordor, Isengard, and Gundabad spec. So I could be improving against the Sauron if I were to go with my Evil Man spec. I could have gone heavily into the Grey and also heavily into my Avoidance, which I didn't do. So this report could have looked much better than this. Here I have another report against the Sauron, but this time I have my Evil Man build. Let's have a look. So first things first, you see I don't have 2 ranged units, I have 1 ranged unit. And also I have equipped my Gigantic Hammer instead my Carver. I have equipped my worn out Smoking Pipe instead of the Wizard's Firework. And here, this is my build. I'm relying heavily on healing, relying on my fleeting movements with the Avoidance, since this Sauron doesn't have Pursuit or whatsoever, but he still destroys me with his Madness. Madness, as well as the fact that Stun isn't counting against half-trolls, so good job, man. Now here I have a report fighting a Mouth of Sauron, Gandalf's arch enemy. He is shutting down my damage with his Harbinger of Darkness. His gear isn't that great, but still, look at this Wizard's Firework, Hunter's Mark. If I were to go with the Avoidance, he could have countered me with this alone. Hysteria, alright, this is cool. But this guy could have totally devastated me if he had a bit more better gear. Maybe I should have included Swan Knights instead of Guard of the Tower. But yeah, it is what it is. I am in a build where I assume I will be fighting Orcs and Uruk-hais a lot. In this case, it makes sense, since Mouth of Sauron has Crushers and Arbalest. Now here I'm fighting a Grimoire, 2 ranged units, no Swan Knights in this team comp. This is my gear, this is my build. I am still in the Orc and Uruk-hai build. And that was a mistake. He has Evil Man only, so I get no value out of Champion of the Light. I could have heavily invested into the Grey, as well as into fleeting movements to get the Avoidance. And this Grimoire has outstandingly good gear, Cutlass, Melee Might. Amazing gear. Worn-out Smoking Pipe, cool. And he also got the right talents over here. Another Grimoire fight here, but this time I have replaced my Guards of the Tower with my Swan Knights. And to my surprise, I'm doing even worse than before. And that's curious. Let's see what's happening here. This is my gear. And I'm still in the Orcs and Uruk-hai build. I haven't switched here. It could have looked much better. And yeah, this is the result. This Grimoire is devastating me, and he has even the Respect 10 item for Grimoire. Oh boy. Hysteria Helmet. Yeah. A high Respect Grimoire. Here I am fighting against a Kirun. This guy is in Variax 2. And look at what's happening, man. Even though I have enough Guards of the Tower, they are doing me no good against these mounted units. My damage is getting shut down. This Kirun is tanking me a lot. This is interesting. Wow, what's happening here? Maybe I should have switched out my sharpshooters with axe throwers? I don't know. This is my gear this time, the gigantic hammer with worn-out smoking pipe. And I am in my evil man build here. What's going on? Amazing key rune. Easterling spear with pierce. Scale mail, melee vigor. Easterling helm, resolve of evil man. He is shutting down my stun. Another key rune fight. As you see, this guy is devastating me. And this time, I don't have one ranged unit in my army composition, I have two. Sharpshooters and bow knights. Maybe I should have replaced my bow knights with my axe throwers. I don't know, that would have been worth the try. My swan knights get devastated. They are all dead. This is my gear. Again. I am in my evil man build. And healing is destroying me. Gigantic hammer. Massive breastplate. Horseman's helmet. Resolve. Imagine if he had warding, he could have even done more damage against me. Drums of Barad-dûr, even more self-sustain. So yeah, this guy is going with the damage build. And this is the result. He is killing me. Last but not least, let's see how Gandalf is doing against Khaldun. Among the top commanders in the game, Khaldun is such a great commander. So, Sword Knights, Sharpshooters, Bow Knights. This is my gear. I am in my evil man build. This is... oh man, he has even the respect 10 item. Amazing. Superior Hauberk, Shroud, Bone Mask, Bone Talisman, Evil Man. Baby! This is such a strong team comp. Now here is another Khaldun fight. This time I have equipped my Carver again. My Carver with Smite. It's also my Wizard's Firework with Mend. I am relying on the luck healing procs on my Sword Knights, so Haven gets activated. And yeah, this is the result with Sharpshooters and Bow Knights. Maybe I should have replaced the Bow Knights with Axe Throwers. I don't know. Yeah, my enemy is also doing a great job. He has cool gear. Look at this. Easterling Spear with Pierce. Protection of Numenor. Eastern Resolve. Allied Evil Man units receive less elemental damage. Evil Man receive less elemental damage. Well, in my case it's not needed, but okay. Easterling Helmet, Resolve of Evil Man, the stun immunity, always nice. Man, I do have learned respecting Evil Man. I consider them the scariest enemies I can have among Evil side. Like, seriously, Season 5 has taught me that I fear the Variax the most. At this point, I want to thank everybody who PvP'd with me. I got to learn a lot from you guys. You have strong commanders. I do find it interesting how you have built your commanders, how you have come up with an army composition, or how you have organized your gear. I'm still learning the game, guys, and I learn day by day more and more about the game just by fighting you guys and see what's happening here in the reports. So, again, thank you evil side players. You guys rock. So, this is Gandalf in a nutshell. I hope that this guide was useful for every newcomer to Gandalf the Grey. This is how I am playing with my Gandalf. If I have missed something, please let me know in the comments below. I am still improving my gameplay. If you enjoyed this video, let me know by leaving a like and consider subscribing. I see you guys next time.